Okay, let's pick these rhythms apart a little bit. So we start with a single eighth note pickup, right? So let's just kind of leave that off for the moment. This is, remember in the very first class we looked at pickup notes. They're kind of like you can think of it as like a breath, like almost like a note that starts before the song actually starts. So that can kind of happen out of time for us, and we're not going to worry about that for now. So let's just look at this first line. And let's separate the left hand and the right hand. And let's look at the left hand first. That's the bottom staff here, because it's a lot easier to see. So we're in 6/8. So we expect to see either 6/8 notes per bar or two groups of eighth notes that equal up 3. Actually, we expect to see both of those things. And we see that very clearly down here. So 6/8 notes in two groups, right? So even if you couldn't see this, if this was totally gone and you didn't know what meter we were in, if you saw this, you should very easily be able to say, we are in 6/8, right? Because that's just the way that goes. That is 6/8 right there. If someone came up to me on the street and said, draw me a picture of 6/8, and it was totally out of context, I draw basically exactly this, right? So that is 6/8. Same thing here, same thing here. Now we go here, we only have half a bar, but we are filled with rests, and that's okay. So here's our first group of 3, that's fine. A quarter note rest equals 2 eighth notes, and then an eighth note rest equals 1 eighth note. Now one thing we could also do here, I'm going to delete that and put a dot on that rest. You can put a dot on a rest. Don't forget about that. So you also see these quite a bit. This is a dotted quarter note rest. That equals 3 eighth notes of rests, right? So that works totally fine. Now, let's go up here. So first, let me just draw a box here around our bigger divisions of the beat. Okay, so because in this case, they're not extremely clear because only on the second half of the beat, like this one, do we have, or second half of the measure, I should say, are they bracketed together with a rhythmic brace, right? This first half, they're not. Okay, so let's look at the first half of this bar. 3 eighth notes, right? This totally works. It's not right away extremely obvious, but a quarter note gets 2 eighth notes, and then we have one more eighth note. So if we want to count this in 6, so remember, counting is just a way that we can basically kind of sing the rhythm. So down here we would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up here we would count 1, 3, 4, up to here. So this gets 2 eighth notes, and then 3, 4. So let's look at this rhythm now. So this rhythm, if we divide this, our eighth notes down into 16th notes, we would have 6 16th notes for one of these. And that's okay. We can do that, right? Because remember, just because we have everything is kind of laid out in these groups of 3 eighth notes doesn't mean we still can't play with that rhythm, right? We still have to do something rhythmically interesting with it. So we can go down to 16th notes and we can do whatever we want. So what we have here is, so if we have 16th notes, we need 6 of them to fill out the rest of this bar, because 6 16th notes equals 3 eighth notes. So a dotted eighth note equals 3 16th notes, right? Plus 1 16th note is what that is, and then plus 1 eighth note, because it's only got one stem coming off it. An eighth note is 2 16th notes. So this is 3, 1 equals 4, plus 2 equals 6. So this is 6 16th notes. So this note happens slightly after the second eighth note, which is not played here. So this is 4, and then this is 6, and this happens right after where 5 would happen, right? So look at below it. This is 5. If we draw a line straight up, that's where 5 should be, and the 16th note comes right after it. So then a lot of the time for 16th notes in compound meter, if we're counting and singing, we might just say ta or ti for a 16th note. So let's do this really slow. 1, 3, 4, ta, 6, 1. Right? So 4, I'm not going to say 5 because that's right there, and that note does not exist right there. So I'm going to say ta, 6, because we skipped right over 5 because this note got held. So 1, 3, 4, ta, 6, 1, 3, 4, 4, ta, 6, 1, 3, 4, ta, 6, 1, 3, 4, 6. Right? We don't have a ta here, so 6. So this bar is just 1, 3, 4, 6, and then it goes on. Okay, so it's kind of a tricky rhythm to read. You have to dissect it. And here what you're gonna have to do here is break this down to 16th notes until you learn just to spot that rhythm. But after a while of doing this, you really do learn to spot these rhythms and just be like, oh, that's da 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 da. You get used to just seeing that. It's a lot like words in a way. Like when you're reading a book, when you're learning to read, you sound out the words, right? Once you get good at reading, you don't even think about the individual letters in the word anymore. You just see the word and you know what that says, right? You just say that word. Rhythms are a lot like that. Chords are like that too once you get good at chords, but rhythms even more so, I think. Where once you get good at reading rhythms, you just kind of spot the group of rhythms. And then when you get really good at it, you learn to just spot the whole measure and be like, oh, that rhythm is da 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 da, and you just recognize that rhythm just like you recognize a word in a book, kind of, right? So compound meter.